Frank Klose has his own issues. He's playing hurt today, and he's kind enough to join us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. All right, Frank, tell us last night, McCutchen, he goes down. He tweets out ominously, "Pray for me." So does it sound like this could be longer, or is that just, him saying, "Hey, guys, I'm hurt. Just make sure I'm okay." But if McCutchen's hurt long term, what next?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and it sounded like after the game, with the way he was joking around with reporters, that things were going to be okay. Maybe they called it a sprain, so maybe it would be a minor issue, but then you had that ominous "pray for me" tweet, so which kind of makes you wonder. Who knows? Maybe he just doesn't like going into the MRI machine. I know that scares me, But yeah, hopefully, they're kind of waiting with bated breath what happens here with him. Obviously, you don't want it to be a big injury like an ACL, and McCutchen said he did that in high school, and he doesn't think it's that. So, but if he's out long term, the Phillies have to add somebody. Certainly they're already depleted because of Odubel Herrera's legal situation, and there's really no clue what's going on with that. And of course, they had to let Aaron Altair go because he couldn't hit, and Roman Quinn also on the IL at this point, and even Dylan Cousins, who you can throw in center in a pinch, he is out for possibly the whole season down to AAA. So the Phillies probably are going to have to add somebody who can play some center field. I think they're lucky that they added Bruce when they did, because Jay Bruce at least can go into left field and play some games there. And then your attention kind of needs to focus on perhaps just getting somebody who can catch the ball in center field. I thought that they would look for a center fielder anyway, but if you can get somebody who can play in between Jay Bruce and Bryce Harper and play a solid center field, I think they're going to be okay with that. Somebody who can catch the ball and can even bat eighth. I think that's what the Phillies are going to need to do long term if he is out a while.
How about Rajai Davis? I know he got DFA'd by the Mets after Conforto came back. He's a center fielder. He's a veteran. I think he's like 38 years old, so I don't know how old they want to get. But he is a guy who has played for a lot of teams, has versatility, and at this point, beggars can't be choosy.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned the Rajai Davis, because I guess about a week ago, after we learned about Herrera, I was kind of looking through some names, and I thought about him, but at the time I thought, well, he's not a lefty bat, which is something they could use, but I'm
now
not
they
really
could
sure
use a righty though.
Yeah, I'm not that sure what the what his center field ability is like these days, but certainly he's a professional. He's 38 years old, I believe now, so he's definitely a veteran presence, and that's actually a pretty good name to keep an eye on, especially now that Jay Bruce is there and can bat from the left side. That might change things a little bit, but you don't need to find a lefty bat. And I had heard that the Phillies were checking in on Steven Dugar with the San Francisco Giants, so he's somebody who's kind of early on in his rookie contract, and could kind of actually bounce back and forth between AAA and the majors if need be, but play a decent enough center field if they were able to acquire somebody like him.
What about Hazley? Do you think that he's ready and that the Phillies should just hand the position over to him? Because 2 weeks ago he was playing Double-A ball at 23, then he gets promoted to the next level, and that's probably with the hope that, okay, maybe he'll get a call-up in September if, you need the extra guys. But is he ready? Do you think he's ready to jump in there and be, a everyday center fielder? Now, I know he's not going to play every day, I wouldn't assume, because Kingery will probably get, but semi-every day.
Yeah, I do think that he is a little ahead of schedule, and he's probably not ready yet to be a major league player. I mean, it's hard to say because, they say Double-A is the bigger challenge than Triple-A because, you're facing a lot of the raw talent, whereas at AAA you tend to have a lot of veterans there who have, not made it in the major leagues and sort of sunk back down. But definitely I think what they would want from Hazley in his promotion is just to go out there and catch the ball. I think that they're not going to put a lot of expectations on him. In fact, I would not be shocked if they say to him flat out, like, hey, when you play, you're a little ahead of schedule, don't worry, catch the ball. You'll see somebody like him batting eighth perhaps. He probably will sit against left-handed starters. And, I think part of the shame of all this is if the Phillies didn't have to put Scott Kingery at third base so frequently now because Maikel Franco fell off the face of the earth. That they don't have really him as an option because then you're weak somewhere else too. So I think what's going to happen is the days that we see Hazley play, it'll be against right-handed pitching. They might bat him eighth and just say to him, look, just go out there, make plays because he's got a nice glove and actually I think he's got a very nice swing. Just a comp that was in my mind 2 years ago. I say 2 years ago because it was before he became an MVP player. Was Christian Yelich. Just in that the way he hits line drive balls and plays a solid center field. I could see him being what
people
Yelich
overly
was.
excited.
Well, I don't think we should get that excited. So I'm talking Christian Yelich with the Marlins. In terms of what he did. I don't expect him to go off on an MVP tear, but this is somebody who's got a really sweet swing. When the Phillies drafted him, they drafted him because they felt he was a little polished already at the college level and that it would not be too long before he made it to the major league. So this is a little bit ahead of schedule. I think that they definitely had plans to see him in September, but I think, anything you get from him out of his bat right now is a bonus. And you know what? If he goes on a tear with his bat, he's just going to earn himself more playing time. So, but definitely, given everything that's going on, they need somebody who can play some center field, and he can do that for them right now. Although I'd still, even if he's playing pretty well, I'd still try to get somebody else on this roster that could play some center field.
It's amazing what's become of those former Marlins, by the way. I mean, Giancarlo goes to New York, and then Yelich becomes an MVP. This year, Dietrich, right? He was a former Marlin, the guy on the Reds who's got 16 home runs already. I mean, Ozuna with the Cardinals.
He was designated for assignments even.
Is that not amazing?
Anybody could have had him.
It's unbelievable. Who's going to lose out here? Because I guess, Mike and I were tossing around the idea. Let's say Hazley plays a little center, as you mentioned, and then you get Bruce to play left field. Then you've got to figure out who's going to play third base. You're going to put Kingery at third base and bring Franco off the bench with him struggling, or is Franco just going to be your everyday third baseman and Kingery is a guy that's coming off the bench?
Well, at some point the Phillies are going to have to make a decision, and if they can get a third baseman and trade, it's really hard to. We've talked about this before frequently because too many teams are in it right now. Mm-hmm. So who is going to give up a starting third baseman that could plug into your team right away? That's not something that you're going to be able to find very easily. So I think you have to get closer to the deadline, see if any other teams have fallen out, see who's out there to play third base, and if it's a team who's young and rebuilding. They might want to take a shot on a couple of years of Maikel Franco, so take him back in a trade if they're giving up their third baseman, someone that can play right away, and maybe we'll figure it out for them down the line. But it's a shame because we see so much talent from Franco at times. His glove is still pretty slick at third base. When he goes on his tears, he's on a tear, but his valleys are just so deep, as his peaks are, that it's really hard to count on him anymore. And I think the Phillies went into the season kind of recognizing that third base and center field, that they have two guys in Herrera and Franco that have their peaks and valleys, and I think they were trying to ride that out with them as their 7 and 8 hitters. But with all the other things going on, I don't think that they can have the Franco valleys if they're looking to really win this National League East.
Now, Frank, with all the talk we're going through with the injury and the outfield help they need, what about the pitching help they might need? Is that on the back burner for now, or is that something that also is at the top of the list of things they need to find?
Yeah, they're it's a shame because a week ago everything seemed so much better, right? Before the Herrera arrest, things seemed like they were on top of the world, and Phillies were in a really good spot. And the one good news is that it looks like Zach Eflin is ready to come back and pitch on Friday. So he'll just have missed that one start. As you saw him go in the DL. He didn't seem quite right the last time. It sounded like this was just a little precautionary little thing in his back that they were trying to just give him a start off to do that. So at least you're going to get Eflin back, and you don't have to have another bullpen game like you did the other day. But speaking of that game, I think that series against Los Angeles really showed just how exposed the Phillies are against left-handed hitters, and they desperately need a left-handed starter. the team can't function against teams like Los Angeles, who's got that whole trove of left-handed bats that'll just take it to you every time. And even last year when the Phillies split the season series with the Boston Red Sox, who also had a lot of good left-handed bats, they did it because they had three lefties in the bullpen, and they really stood up and did a great job. Now the Phillies don't have Adam Morgan at the moment. Jose Alvarez is in the bullpen and he's been pitching very, very well. They just went to Austin Davis again for the foreseeable future, just to give them another left-handed arm in there. But they need left-handed pitching. Alvarez, of course, did the opener act the other day and pitched 2 innings, and then he was not available the next day. So that really showed just how exposed the Phillies were against lefty pitching. So I'd like to see them get a left-handed starter that can really take it to some of the competition that's out there that bats left-handed. And they said before the offseason that they needed that, and they never really did find somebody. They ran on Corbin, they ran on Jay Happ, and neither of those things worked out. So that still remains a need. It doesn't sound like they're in on Dallas Keuchel either. Now, Tommy Hunter, it looks like he's going to start throwing again soon. He could be back in a couple weeks. He's been pretty good against left-handed bats as well. So that will be a little bit of a boost. But definitely before the trade deadline, they have to do something to get a left-handed arm in that rotation. And it seems like they can't go without it anymore, because if you have one lefty that shuts down that Dodgers lineup over the weekend and they take 1 out of 3, it might feel a lot better right now than losing 5 in a row.
All right.
I would say also, Frank, I mean, we're getting close to we're in June, getting close to the halfway. But I mean, Aaron Nola, 4.63 RA, and last night I thought he was very fortunate to make it to the 6th inning with 1 run allowed. He's either nibbling or the ball isn't breaking as well as it did last year. It breaks a lot, it drops, but not with the location and command that he had last year. And I thought he got in and out of a lot of trouble last night before it finally caved in on him. He just has not been the same dominant guy.
Well, I think going into this season, the one thing that I did say was you're going to have to expect some sort of regression on Aaron Nola. I mean, he had an unbelievable season last year. Could be the best season of his career when it's all said and done. You can't expect the same thing. And
that's fair, but I was expecting maybe an ERA in the 3s instead of the 4 on the high 4s.
Well, he had the rough start. Then he kind of had the ERA. I think it was in the 2s after his first. I forget how many starts it was that where he kind of turned around. Was it 4? I think he had 4 bad starts. I think since then up to last night he had about a 2.5 ERA. So it seems like he sort of got back on track. And last night he just was throwing a lot of balls up, and of course, major league hitters with power feast on those. So I think last night could have been an isolated incident, and what seems to be him getting back on track. So I'm not too worried about Aaron Nola, but it's a real shame because you're having that losing streak, and you kind of want your ace to sort of show up and shut it down, and it just didn't happen last night.
All right, we'll keep our eye on all that. Of course, the Phillies finally finishing up this West Coast swing. They'll be back home and hopefully getting healthy. We'll get you up to date on McCutchen. At Frank Klose on Twitter. Check out the Phillies mailbag on Tuesdays right here on the Sports Bash. Thank you, Frank. Feel better, man.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Frank Klose, like all guests
appeared
via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.